Hello, this is Virtualis the Chess Noob, learning and having fun with chess. So in this game, I had two brilliancies. So let's have a quick look. Number one, great vision according to the chess.com bot. So brilliancy 1, and the second one, right afterwards, brilliancy 2. Let's see how they occurred in the actual game. This was a fun game of the Vienna, and as you know, the Vienna game is my usually opening with white when I'm allowed to play it. Of course, it starts with e4, e5, and then knight c3. One of the interesting things in the Vienna, especially at the beginner intermediate level, is that sometimes black doesn't really know how to respond. And this was possibly the case in this game because my opponent spent almost, about half a minute, 30 seconds thinking about what move to play. And in fact, they played a sort of very non-committal flank pawn move, h6. Definitely not a mistake, but also not particularly good. So plus 0.5 here already. And one of the things is if you're allowed to take the full center, you should do so. And in this case, that's what I did. So d4, so of course I will capture, take back with queen. Now, of course, you will have to move the queen again because that would be very natural. And here, I think either of these squares are potentially good for the queen. I ended up playing queen e3. I think Stockfish prefers queen d3 more, but it's not a big difference really there. All right. Now, they now play bishop e7, which I think Stockfish calls a inaccuracy. Yeah, so +1. So this is one of the things that happens when you basically just sort of take control of the initiative somewhat in the Vienna. Now I played bishop d2 so that I could castle queenside. They pushed their knight, but making a knight attack prior to development probably isn't going anywhere. So they were probably thinking that they would have a potential royal fork there, but I was planning on castling queenside, and there is no royal fork because the square is protected by the king, and of course they can't take that pawn either because of the knight. So here at the end of move 7, I'm really doing well in development, +2.5. The opponent is not necessarily in that great a shape. They developed the other knight, and here I think I sort of probably made an error. I sort of thought I would develop my other pieces. I think Stockfish thinks attacking straight up is good. And here I sort of jump forward, but that actually kind of goes nowhere because with the pawn, look, I'm just forced to move the knight again. And I think we're back to equality. Yeah, basically almost back to equality. So the goal really should have been to push the e-pawn and attack the knight. So I'll remember that for next time. So pull the knight back, and I thought we'll probably end up trading. Yeah, probably not with the queen, develop my bishop. There we are. And we, chess continues. And here, my idea here is, I think, Stockfish thinks this is pretty equal, yeah. But I thought I was in potentially a really good position. So the queen could potentially come and sort of attack the king side fairly easily. These two bishops are sort of set up very, very nicely for a potential attack as well. And now that we've castled opposite sides, these pawns can all potentially pawn rush the king as well. So I was pretty sure I had a really good attack. While that bishop is sort of hemmed in at the moment, that knight doesn't necessarily have the best places to go. I suppose they could potentially attack the queen there. And that, in fact, is what they do. Now, I think here, according to Stockfish, the best move is actually to retreat the queen back. Obviously, the knight is attacking the queen to defend the f2 pawn. However, I thought I would play dangerously, move my queen to g3, lining it up, facing off the pawn on g7. Of course, the king is on the same file as well. Now, right after I made this move, I realized this was a mistake. And I think Stockfish does call this a blunder. Yep, so black substantially ahead, basically because they've got one move. So bishop to h4 attacks the queen, also attacks the pawn after forced moving of the queen. I'm actually in some trouble. I didn't see that until after I made the move, and This is actually a reasonably forcing line. So black had to see that move for it to be a blunder, because every other move, white is significantly ahead. And my opponent doesn't see the move, which is great for me. I now play f4, attacking the bishop. They've sort of pulled the bishop back, so, shuffling their bishop backwards and forwards. And now I attack the knight. They sort of bring the bishop out now, but this same idea doesn't work anymore because there is no pawn there anymore. So I move the queen over. So now there is two attackers on that knight, so they'll have to do something. They sort of bring the knight down, so potentially sort of forking these two rooks. I think that was what they were thinking. I'm thinking of trading a knight for a rook. However, I now can push the pawn forward to g3, disconnecting the defense of the knight with the bishop. At the same time, counter-attacking the bishop. I was pretty proud of that move, actually. If you look at the feedback, yep, so Stockfish calls it a great move, plus 2.5 or so. Now, what black had to do here, and I think they actually spent some time thinking about the next best move, is they can't take one of the rooks because I will be able to basically just take the bishop, and I open up the G file for my pieces. And of course, that knight, once taking one of these rooks, is basically trapped. It will never get back out of my castle. However, what they could do is to take that bishop. That comes with check. I'll be forced to take that knight back, and then the bishop can potentially escape. So that's probably what they should have done. However, I think my opponent didn't see that. They thought that that bishop was potentially lost, so they decided to do a desperado. They take with bishop, and that was a game-changing error. As we will see, a blunder, +8, because I now can take that bishop. I now have an open file. That knight, look, wherever it goes, is going to be captured back. That's fine. Here, they sort of push a pawn, counterattacking. Doesn't matter. Rook, G1. Now there's a battery, rook and queen, and that is now a mate threat. Mate in one threat. They must do something about it. Now they probably should push the rook. However, they played queen, maybe thinking they were going to develop the queen. However, this queen is now effectively pinned to provide guard duty to that pawn, which means it must either stay on the second rank, or it'll have to come here or here. So it's pretty much stuck to a number of squares. Queen that position, knight d5, powerful position for the knight. So the queen, what's it going to do? Moves over. So now, of course, hemming in their own rook as well. This is not a threat, because remember, anytime the queen moves out of sight, it will be checkmate. So here, I can straight up capture. There's nothing the opponent can do, and this is the first brilliancy. So ostensibly sacking the knight, but of course they can't take the knight because of the mate in one threat. One of the things is, when you're in such a powerful attacking position, it's actually potentially reasonably easy to find these moves that Stockfish calls brilliant. Now, that now opens up that potential light square diagonal for that bishop, which is very, very good for me, and also stops that pawn from being able to come forward because I just have another attacker. So they try to attack the knight, but that knight is fine. It's not really contributing to the attack, willing to sacrifice it. And here, the second brilliancy, add an extra attacker. So now, there we go, bishop to c3. Another brilliant move, because I'm basically sacrificing the knight once again. And now there's 1, 2, 3 attackers on that pawn. They're in some big trouble. They take, that's fine. Bishop captures. They can't capture back because obviously that will be checkmate. That bishop is now attacking, forking those two pieces. They've decided to move the rook, but that just means the bishop survives. We've discovered check, and my opponent opted actually to resign at this point. And in fact, it's a mate in 6. And pretty much the mate even comes faster. The mate in 6 pretty much only occurs as a mate in 6 if black chooses to do almost spite sacrifices of some of their pieces just to delay checkmate. So what might that look like? So obviously they'll have to move the king out of the way. Queen here, so now, you know, that would be potential sort of discovered check and mate. So, you know, spite check, capture, spite check, move out of the way, spite check, capture. And here there's a number of different mates which are possible, but probably the prettiest here is, yeah, there we go, check, king forced to move forward, and now checkmate with the bishop. You know, that's defended, this whole row is defended. Very lovely sort of crisscross checkmate there. Good game, GG. My big takeaway from the Vienna game is to strategically develop a position to attack the opponent's king side. I hope you enjoyed this video and thanks for watching.